everyone, Christy Watson here with SheJumps, and today I'm going to walk you through a tutorial of how to make tutus since it's a fan favorite at all of our Get the Girls Out events. So the first step is going to be taking some elastic. I've already used this to make tutus earlier today, so I sewed together a couple scraps, but you would have one long piece of elastic and you want to figure out how big to make it. I've already cut this down, but the idea here is to wrap it around your stomach. You want it to be tight, not too tight so that you're uncomfortable. You need to be able to get it on and off your hips, but if you're doing something outdoors that involves any kind of activity, you probably don't want it to be too loose. It could fall off, so make sure it is a bit snug. And once you've got it cut down to the proper size, you're going to sew the ends together. To make it a little bit stronger, it's a good idea to do a little bit of a square here. So overlap and then sew the square on. It'll keep it a little bit better secure and better in place. So I have a sewing machine. Makes my life a little bit easier, but you can totally use a needle and thread if you do not have a sewing machine. So again, you're just sewing the square, sew until you reach the end, one piece, turn it, sew, and you've got yourself a loop. So the next step is cutting the tulle. I have here a pretty nifty little spool of it. It's already cut to be 6 inches across, which is what you want. The first time I made this, I got the large things of tulle from the fabric section. It requires a little bit more work because you have to cut widthwise and lengthwise to get what you want. So this is a little bit more expensive than that, but it is easier. So in order to cut it down to the right length, you need to figure out how long you want your skirt to be and factor in how tall you are, obviously, to that. So for reference, I'm 5'4". I wanted my skirt to be 12 to 13 inches. So you're going to take the 13 inches that you want, and you need to double that now because this will be folded in half over the waistband. So you actually need 26 inches for the length of the skirt, and then you want to throw on an additional 2 for how you're attaching on. You're going to tie some knots, and adding a few inches will allow for the fabric that will be taken up by doing that. So once you get to preferred length, mine is 28 inches long, you will just take the fabric here and fold it so you can get a bunch of pre-measured strips. You have to go through and measure every single time. So just continue folding. Do this until you have as many strips as you'd like. I'm just going to do 3 right now for demonstration purposes, but it'll take a lot more than 3, and you'll want to do a bunch of different colors. If you want super colorful one, you could do one color, however you want it to look. So now we've got a bunch of strips, but they're still connected, so you need to cut the loops on the ends, and you have yourself a bunch of strips. So the final and most time-consuming step of the process is attaching all the pieces of tulle onto the waistband. For the tutu that I made earlier today, I used about 70 to 80 pieces of tulle. Those were actually also twice as thick. They were twice the length of each one of these and folded over, so this is essentially 4 folds. So that might up the number that you want to use. My friend used slightly fewer than mine. It just depends on how poofy you want the tutu to be in the end. So I would probably plan to have around 100 pieces of this and see how that goes. You might want to add or take a few from there. But let's see. The first step is to take the tulle, single piece of tulle, and you are going to fold it in half. So the long way just come down. So you've got kind of a U shape at the top. You've got the tulle in half. And then you are going to take the elastic waistband you have and put the U behind it, so the top here where it's bent. Then you take both of the ends and you loop them through there, pull them back down, so you've essentially just knotted it on to the waistband. And that is really, it's very easy. That's all there is to it. You're just going to do this a bunch. So you've got about 100 pieces of tulle on there. The one note, you'll see I've got a pretty wide piece of elastic here. It's my first time making them. I went for a larger waistband, but as you can see, when you tie each one of the pieces of tulle on there, it's going to kind of compress this. For me, it twisted it up a bit. It still worked fine. I don't think you'll notice how thick the elastic is because it's all going to squeeze down anyway, but thick worked for me. This is about 1 inch of knit elastic, but if you wanted to go down from that, it's probably cheaper. Might be a little bit easier to work with, so leave that up to you guys. But show you one more of these. So you take another piece of tulle, fold it over so you've got the U shape at the top. U goes behind the elastic, ends go through, and you pull those back down in the same direction now that you've got the other, so you don't have tulle sticking up in all different directions. And you're just going to tighten it down. There you go. That's the beginnings of a tutu. So it is a little time consuming, very straightforward, very easy, and a great way to spend an afternoon with some girlfriends.